Right then, we're going from Neckerchief Rock to mod. Although Rob was a mod, of course, in the early days.
Yeah.
But this is neo mod. This is second generation, third generation mod, maybe even. In a book entitled Odds and Sods, which is by Paul Hallam, who's been a listed Londoner on this show before. And it takes us back, well, it actually takes us back to the early 1980s. But it could almost be the 1880s from these pictures. Yeah. It feels and looks like a very long time ago. It's a brilliant document of young kids in London, dressed to the nines, dancing, partying, and it's very well put together and beautifully produced. And it's by Paul Hallam, who's here with us now. Paul, welcome to BBC Radio.
Thanks for having me back, Robert.
First of all, let's go back to the early 1980s, because I'm sort of dressed as a new romantic probably at this time.
Yeah, you got to remember, I'm a little bit younger than you. Yeah. So in 79, I'm 14. I'm obsessed with all things 60s. The mod revival comes along. For my 14th birthday, I do get a copy of Time for Action. I'm not really... I'm not upset. I haven't got into the mod revival. I like it, but... It's not for me. I'm still only 14. I can't go anywhere. So I put it to one side and leave it for a year and then revisit it in 1980 and I'll go to my first club.
Right, which was where?
Feltham Football Club. Which is...
that glamorous location.
Which is... Do you know what? I went there as a young... what would I have been? 15-year-old? And then when I started DJing a year and a half later, 2.5 years later, it was the first club I did. It still probably is the most menacing, threatening, violent place I've ever DJed and been to. It was horrible. You can't imagine. It's just you know...
I can.
Well, you can. It was a clubhouse in the middle of a field in Feltham.
Right. And when did you start taking a photo along, for a camera along with you?
So what happened was I did my first mod club at the end of 1980, and then Mum wouldn't let me go out because I was too young. I had to do my O-levels, or more CSEs, to be honest. And then at the end of 81, I go on a school ski trip. It's my last year at school. I go to Switzerland, and I find this old Olympus trip that my parents had. And what I do, I take that on the ski trip. I take some photos. Most of it is just, 15, 16-year-old lads messing around in the hotel after skiing. Some pictures of mountains. And people go, oh, they're quite good. So what I do, I start work in 1982 in Feltham again. And there's a Boots in Feltham that does black and white developing. It's really expensive. It's £5. And I've got, I'm earning 25 quid a week. Yeah. So I think, I'm working in print, let me go out and photograph the mod scene as it is. And with the idea of maybe making a pamphlet or a book or something. So I start that in 82. Then, in 83, everyone goes, oh, you take great pictures. I go out and buy a proper camera. I go out and buy this Russian camera, a Zenit B, I think it is. And there's no pictures in the book from 83 because I didn't know how to use the proper camera. So, all the pictures I took on it are rubbish. There's people's heads cut off, there's legs. So then I get the Olympus trip back out. By this time, I'm DJing. I've opened this Seminole Club, Sneakers, or people tell me it's Seminole, at the Bush Hotel. Yep. And it's really kicked off. The mod scene's changed for me. It's gone from... leading up till then, it still was quite revivalist. It was very tribal. If I went to a club in East London, you kept your head down. Yeah. If East London come to a club in Paddington or in Shepherd's Bush, there could be a fight. But in 84, the scene becomes much smaller. A lot of the old East London people like Bob Morris reappearing, and we become united. So... whereas the South London gents may have stayed in their South London clubs and the Ugbugs, these girls from Acton and Ealing might have stayed in theirs, we're all mixing together, and that's when the camera comes out because it's a great time, and I think it's time to document it.
So where are most of these pictures taken?
The majority are taken at what was the Bush Hotel, right. Which, as you know very well, on the corner of Goldhook Road and Shepherd's Bush Green, which at the time I went there as probably a 15, 16-year-old. The late, great Tony Class was doing the Saturday nights there, and it was very Northern Soul and mod revival. And towards the end of 83, he said to me, look, do you want to do a rare R&B, rare 60s soul night on Sundays? So I did. First week, I think we had 150 people. Second week, we had 15 people. And then it kind of started to rise, and then this whole scene sort of, happened.
It's it's a very dressed scene, isn't it? Because, when I think of the early mod revival of the late 70s, it was all boys in jeans and parkas. Yeah, this is much more kind of suits and ties and very, very precise.
Well, somebody asked me recently, what did that mod thing mean? What did it mean to us all? And I think, to sum it up, it's attention to detail. Yeah. There's a great... my favourite picture in the book, and one thing I will say... I wouldn't have picked a lot of the pictures in the book, but Ewan and Joe, who published it at CW, they know what they're doing. They're real photographers. I'm not. I'm just a bloke who had an Olympus trip 35 years ago. But it's attention to detail. And there's a picture in there of a lady called Anita Stinton, who I went out with when I was 17, she was 16. And we went out for a week and a half, I think. But she's wearing this Prince of Wales skirt. She's got a scarf made of the same material, and she's coated the handbag as well. So she's completely coordinated head to toe. And that's what it was all about. 83, 84, 85. For me, it was about rare records.
What sort of music are these people dancing to?
We are now listening to predominantly 60s soul, 62 to 66. So it's sort of early Tamla, very early Tamla.
Yeah.
Loads of Sue records, lots of stuff on London. So we are playing some white music. Occasionally the odd Small Faces track will slip in, but predominantly it's all black American music from the early 60s.
And where are these kids? I say kids, what do you reckon is the average age here?
Well,
early 20s?
That's no. I'm in 1984. I'm 19.
Right.
Anita's 2 years younger than me. We're talking Anne-Marie, who's organised this get-together tonight. She's 15, I think, when all this is going on. And one of the things, that Ewan said to me when he said about doing the book, he said, this is history. This is London that can't happen again. There's a shot in there of Soho with no yellow lines.
Yeah.
Paul Raymond review bars in the background.
Everyone's smoking in the clubs.
Everyone's smoking in the clubs. And there's 14, 15, 16-year-olds in the clubs. Not that I'm saying that's a good thing.
No, but there were back then. No one stopped
No ID,
Exactly. I was going out to clubs at 14 and 15.
I remember going to my first club, the Felton Football Club. I'd have been just turned 15, and the ID was the bouncer said, "How old are you, mate?"
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah,
18.
As long as you said 18.
Yeah, that's it. He went, "Oh, right, okay then,"
So it's a very young scene.
Yep.
Where are the kids from? Would you say is it predominantly West London?
Well, initially the early pictures, so the pictures from '82, would be West London kids,
Yeah.
Who are now in their 50s, because the Bush was a West London club.
Yeah.
But when you get into '84 and '85, you've got other clubs opening up. You've got the Ben Truman down in Southwark, which was run by Drew Orr and Bob Morris. You've got the Phoenix in Cavendish Square. We're going, I'd think nothing of heading off to Wolverhampton on a Tuesday night to see a band called Making Time. It's insane in my Datsun Cherry, So the early pictures are West London, but then when we all come together, there's people from all over the place. There's a guy called Des from Cardiff, and he used to come up to Sneakers every other weekend on a Sunday night for a club that shut at 10:30 on a train.
What would you say the balance is boys to girls? It is predominantly male.
Yeah. It's probably 70-30, thinking about it, and it still is. I mean, there's a lot of young mods out there now.
Is there?
Yeah, and that's really inspiring. Well, I say they're young mods. One of them is that super chef and TV personality Stacey Stewart. She's about 35, but in our world, that's young. Then you've got a girl called Scarlett. I think she's 17. The
people in this book, do you still know quite a few of them?
Yeah, loads of them. Yeah. And tonight we're having this. It's not a club night. It's not. The idea is with this. As you know, I publish books. I've got the Old Dogs book publishing, and you've had Steve Piper and Matteo in here. I had nothing to do with this. All I did, Ewan contacted me, all I did was give him the pictures, and 6 months later he went, "There's your book." And it's brilliant. Now, I might not have picked some of the photos, and there's a lot of photos which I think would be great to be seen. There's one picture in particular of my friend Jane Cook, who I still see. She lives in Cornwall now, and it's a picture in the Bush Hotel, and behind her is written on the wall, "Support the miners." And that's, that's something that's never going to happen again. Do you know what I mean? That's not planned. It's just some graffiti that somebody's written on a chalkboard. So, I still see the people. And I think tonight we're looking at having maybe 60, 70, 80 people come down to the old Bush Hotel to...
Where did people get their clothes? Did they get stuff made, or was it...
Yeah, it's all bespoke.
Bespoke, but clearly some of it is bespoke if it's suits.
Yeah.
But there must have still been, I reckon, a fair amount of old stock then.
That's true. I mean, we took it so seriously. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she used to have her shoes made. There was a little cobbler's in Goldhawk Road.
Yeah.
Just as you go up Goldhawk Road going towards Chiswick on the left-hand side, it was a tiny shop, small in the studio. And he made his name making boots for glam rock artists. That's how, and he always had them in the window and everything. So she'd go and get shoes made. And I do remember one story, this is not a lie, it was all about finding old tailors, who had different material. And I found this one in Islington. I had this beautiful pair of trousers made, 28-inch waist, obviously they wouldn't fit me now. And I wore them down to Ben Truman on a Saturday night, and this guy called Don Bassett had obviously been to the same tailors, had the same material on, and I went home and threw them away. It was that serious. I didn't want, didn't want anyone else to have the same trousers as me.
Did you have enemies? Was there a sort of a counter? Because these were still quite violent times, as you pointed out.
It does make me laugh. Obviously the streets of London are unsafe these days in places, but
it was much more unsafe then.
Yeah, but it was more unsafe then. I would get on a bus, particularly in the early days. We're talking 1982, and I'd be getting back to Feltham on the bus. the 90, I think it was, or 237. And we'd get on at Shepherd's Bush, and it'd be fine, because there'd be 50 mods on the top deck, and then some would get off at Chiswick, some would get off at Brentford, etc. But at Hounslow, you'd get skinheads that come on, and they would, menace you. I mean, thinking back on it, they were probably 16-year-old kids as well, but they appeared very scary. There was always casuals looking for a fight, and I, at the time, never understood the connection between mod and casual. Now, as a 50-year-old man...
Now they're really close.
Well, we were all together, you know what I mean? It's all very similar. But at the time, they were the enemy. They were the people attacking me at Richmond bus stop when they were coming out the ice skating rink and I was coming out of Cheeky Peas.
It is a fascinating document of an era, and it feels a lot longer ago. I realise partly because it itself was harking back to something that was a lot longer ago. So
it is... Let's say it's 32 years ago, and this is kind of a weird thing. We're copying something that was 20 years earlier. Yeah. There's a longer gap between us and then the original mod. So
there was.
Getting back to your point, there was still clothes. I could, when I was a young mod, I could go into Oxfam in Feltham Shopping Centre and find a beautiful jacket, like this one I'm wearing here now, and get it for £4.50.
Yeah.
There was a surplus of original 60s clothes knocking around.
Yeah.
Same with scooters. I mean, I was never big on scooters, but when, in 81, you could go and pick up Lambrets for 150 quid, because there was just hundreds of them lying around.
It's a fascinating document. Where can people get it?
It's available on the CW website. I believe it's on the Amazon, and it goes into Waterstones this Friday. So I'm very excited about it.
And it's called Odds and Sods, and it's a fantastic collection, which I think will bring back many, many memories for many, many people. And it's the photographs of Paul Hallam. Paul, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Robert.